All right, let's call the meeting to order. We have a quorum.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
let's adjourn the committee of the whole first, if you don't mind.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I make a motion we adjourn the committee of the whole.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Now we'll call the meeting to order. Mr. Smith, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We need a motion to approve the agenda or to modify it.
Mr. Chairman, before making a motion to approve the agenda, I'd like to make a motion. Is this on?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add to line item 14.
Yeah, under action, right.
Yes, action.
Is that correct, Brandon? If we add anything, it needs to be number 14.
It will need to be either, I would say 13A, B, or C.
I'd like to make a motion then that we amend the agenda to add, to amend it 13A, the consideration of renaming Burgall Elementary School to C.F. Pope Elementary School.
All right, would that be, so the number 13 that's already there,
So it'd be A.
so that's 13A, so the name change, will that be 13B?
No, that'll stay 13. That'll remain
So
13.
then 13A is separate, okay, gotcha.
Yep.
And
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Smith, I'm
And to
sorry.
add to that, Mr. Chairman, I believe that we also have to vote on to suspend policy on naming schools. If the attorney could give me what, or someone can give me what the policy number is.
Yep, you have that paper.
I think it should be.
Oh, sorry.
I did have.
That's okay.
Mr. Chairman, also, I'd like to amend the agenda to add the suspending of policy number 9300, naming facilities.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, if I could suggest we change A and B.
Yeah, I mean,
policy
Yeah.
prior.
yes,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Mr.
okay.
Brad George.
Yep. Have any more changes that anyone would like?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we, to amend the agenda and move the informational item concerning the,
Two.
yeah, concerning informational item number 2, revisions to board policy 7430, substitute teachers, first read, and move it to, number, under action agenda number 13.
C.
C.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, does each one of these need a separate vote, or will we vote as a total group on each amendment?
A single motion will suffice as long as it captures all the necessary amendments.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, I also like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add to section 13D, to add review and approval of distribution of Blue Law Firm report of investigation.
Okay. How about the surplus property? Does anybody want to take that up?
Mr. Chairman, I also like to make a motion that we amend the agenda to add to 13F.
E, well,
E.
13.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm not a Pender County graduate. Sorry, we got all these letters. To E, that we want to make a motion to add surplus approval to be added to the action of distribution of surplus material.
Brandon, do we need to put the name, the recipient yet, or should we do that during the discussion?
You should do that during discussion of the item.
Okay.
I would make a recommendation, discussion of disposal of school property.
Yes, that's,
Yes. Okay. All right. Anyone got any additional changes? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda with the amendments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda with all the additional changes.
All right, Mr. Smith has made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. George has made a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, unanimous. Thank you. All right, recognitions. Child Nutrition and Airmark Fund expenditures, and Taryn Bain, Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms recipient. So who's
sir.
doing these recognitions? Dr. Hill?
Myself and Mr. Riley over there, sir. The first one, I received a letter from the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and especially this year, we run a pretty efficient and actually a profitable child nutrition program, which is rare for school systems. And this year, especially with the challenges in the spring with the COVID epidemic, and I just want to read this letter. It's fairly short, so I think it'll speak for itself. But again, it's from the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Mr. Gary Gay, the Director of Food Distribution for the state. And he writes down, "Dear Stephen Hill Superintendent, I would like to inform you that your school nutrition director, Rita Head, who's here with us tonight, and Airmark General Manager, Mr. Vernon Tanner, who's also here with us tonight, spent 100% of the federal entitlement funds allocated to their school system in the National School Lunch Program for the 2019-2020 school year. This is relative to the ordering of USDA foods available for your district. I want to commend your team on achieving this task, especially this year with all the challenges that COVID-19 placed upon them. Congratulations, and we wish you and your staff the very best in the coming year." I think this is relevant for everything that had to go into place to make that food distribution happen in the spring, and just to bring it back to everybody's attention that even at the state level, Pender County is being recognized. And I just wanted to stop for a minute and appreciate our food services program and what they're doing for us.
We're going to play a brief video real quick about Miss Bain, and then I'll kind of explain a little bit.
All right.
Taryn Bain's passion for educating students on Spanish has been on display for almost 2 decades, and soon the Heidi Trask High teacher will be expanding her knowledge base. Bain was one of 71 people chosen from around the United States to take part in the Fulbright Teachers Global Classrooms program.
I applied for it in March, and I heard about it, and it's like, well, why not? I'll take a shot. Took a good amount of time, got my application in, and I thought, you know, someone from Rocky Point isn't going to be a Fulbright scholar. And so when I got that notice that I'd gotten it, I'm floored. I'm ecstatic. I cannot wait to get started.
The Fulbright program features 3 different pieces. An academic study will begin in September that will prepare Bain and her fellow Fulbright teachers for the global trek. Normally, the group would meet in Washington, D.C. for a symposium, but COVID-19 restrictions have turned that opportunity into a digital event. She'll be assigned a cohort which will pick a topic to research when they travel. And, when it's permissible, Bain will join her group on an international stage. After the trip, she will complete a capstone project discussing what she learned and how it can be implemented in Pender County.
For me to have an experience like this is going to bring a whole wealth of knowledge that I wouldn't have if I just stood in front of the classroom every day. So it's going to be a lot of work, but I really feel like my kids are going to benefit from it. And I can't wait to bring back what we learn and to take them through the whole process with me. So the more I learn, the more I'll be able to teach them.
Taryn Bain's passion for educating
Miss Bain opted not to come tonight because she wants to come and present after she's had the experience. Right now there's a lot of uncertainty. She doesn't know when she's going to be able to travel. Normally there's a little stricter timeline in place, but she is a Fulbright scholar, which is a pretty big deal. So we wanted to share that tonight because we felt this was a pretty big accomplishment for somebody from Pender County. And she'll be back sometime within the next year, hopefully, to present her experience with you guys after all is said and done. But we just wanted to recognize her tonight. So.
All right, thank you. Public comment. We have 2, and there's a statement Brandon, do you have a copy of it by chance, or? I've got it in. Oh,
It's on your agenda.
oh, okay. I had it covered up. Thanks. The Pender County Board of Education welcomes comments from our parents, students, and community. The open session for public comment is designed for the Board of Education to listen and respond at a later time if necessary. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. All right, and first sign up is Mr. Kenneth Keith.
Good evening to
Good
my
evening.
fellow board members, former board members. The last time I was before you all, it was to encourage you all to use the Blue Law Firm to investigate the matter and the situation at Pender High School. And I see that now that that report is complete. I don't know what the outcome is, but some people were complaining about the cost of it. But I think the truth is priceless. Whatever it was, if you got the truth, and let me encourage you all to take it and move forward and put it behind us. I put a lot of time in out there, and I don't like seeing the negative that's constantly running across the streams. Too many good things happen to let one or two little negative things just kind of destroy it. And I know that you all will take the results and do what's best for the children in the county. The second thing is I'd like to comment on the issue of renaming Virgo Elementary to C.F. Pope. Now, I came along doing integration, right in the middle of integration. And when the African American schools, the high schools in particular, the names were just thrown to the side, and that created, I understand the reason what was going on was a lot of pressure on whoever the board members were back then. It was just a lot of tension. It was ugly. But we're on a new day, a new era. It has a historical purpose. And I think if we can get back to that, I support the renaming of it. I know that I think the policy is to name the schools geographically, but you know we do have one or two schools that's named after people. Hyde Trask and Pender High School, of all things, as you look back at it, Pender High's kind of downline from William Dorsey Pender, the Confederate general that Pender County is named after. So, you know, we don't need to go way back and start renaming all that, but I would like to see C.F. Pope get returned to Virgo Elementary. It won't do anything to the quality of education. If anything, I think you get more support. There are people that come in and support it. They have got some good alumni, and so I ask you all to take a good, serious look at that and support it. Do the right thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keith.
Brandon, did you keep the time on these? Good. And Mr. Malloy.
The reason I'm standing back before you, I'd like to know if there's any other questions I can answer. Do you have any other thing for me?
Anyone have any more questions for Mr. Malloy?
If not, I will return to my seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, the information agenda. Item 1 is COVID-19 school operations update. Dr. Hill and various others.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, this is a pretty extensive process, basically, and we've doing the best we can to kind of reinvent school overnight. So what we're looking at is we figured it, no way we could go past a board meeting without giving an update on COVID-19. So we had a lot of parents that we had to work with in the initial opening of school this year, talking about, you know, in the spring, but we just wanted to remind everyone that in the spring, it was basically with one school system, and that we had all the kids in their normal home rooms. They went on Google Classroom, went home, and it was one teacher. And when we came back in mid-July is when we found out we were gonna run 2 school systems based on the governor's announcement. Took DPI, matter of fact, DPI's last update to their guidance was on the 19th of August. We started school on the 17th. So it's been a constant evolution of 3 or 4 weeks of trying to figure out how to make it work in the initial run. And so now we're at the time where we've had to actually bring in some additional help as far as third-party vendors and things like that, and expand some programs, some of the ones we've already known, North Carolina Virtual and Apex. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about that tonight and how we're trying to overcome these things and how we've added value to what we're doing and improving as we go. So just wanted to give you an update on that tonight, Board. Dr. B, current total student number.
So, this would actually start with Dr.
No, you're
Who's
next.
speaking?
Should be current numbers.
So we pulled the latest numbers as of 10:15 a.m. on September 2nd, and we had, when taking out our pre-K students, 9,680 students enrolled. This does not include any pre-K students currently, but when you add those numbers back in, we are over 10,000. And this number has changed from a high in late August of approximately 9,900 students. So we've had a lowering of enrollment. And so currently we are 293 students below our projected ADM. Now our projected ADM will be calculated once we hit our first 20 days, the principal's monthly report. And then that's when they'll calculate that. Be aware that consistent with this also, the General Assembly has waived the ADM teacher allotments, so we are being kept at our same number of teachers. So we won't lose our teachers even though our ADM has dropped or is anticipated to having dropped. So that's a good thing.
Dr. B, right quick before you leave, do we know? Betsy, have we got a bill from the charter schools yet? How many we lost back to charter? We don't know yet.
We have not received any
Not yet.
bills from any of the charter schools.
Not yet.
What about homeschool? Is there any way to pull what we've lost to the
Not yet.
True
Terry and
homeschool.
I are working on that right now. We know that a number have pulled their children out specifically for that purpose, but we're trying to get that number. That's going to be a little bit more difficult to get. We won't be able to get it until they register their kids with the homeschool numbers.
So these ones that's dropped that we've seen, these are actual transfer out. We know they're gone there, or they just haven't showed up.
It can be both. So some may be a straight withdrawal one, so a W-1 or W-2 that they never showed up during their first 10 days. We don't know where they're going. So it can be both of those.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just to kind of give you an update on following what Dr. Hill mentioned about running two school systems. I think that is a really important note and one that, I'll be honest, I wish I had kind of helped make clear going back to the summer. When in the spring, we were operating under what we would now call Plan C. That was the only thing we had to worry about. And we actually, I think, did a really good job. We had some teachers out there that did an amazing job of making that happen. And when we rolled into the summer and then into August 17th, what we were faced with really was taking care of two distinct paths of students, some that were coming face-to-face on some days, and then they were remote on other days, and then we had a whole separate path of students who were entirely online, and that is what we've been sort of working through these last 3 weeks. I do want to thank all of our parents who have been exceptionally patient with us as we work through that. Our teachers and our principals, I think, likewise have done an amazing job of building something which now we're the ones getting phone calls from around the state. I know that our principals and I have talked to at least 3 different school systems who are getting ready, and they're coming to us to try to figure out how to do this. So when we originally made this slide, the total enrollment as of noon on August 28th was 2,960. I just double checked. We're actually closer to 3,050 at this point. We have 1,286 elementary students, just a shade over 1,000 high school students, and I believe 752 middle school students at this time. Just to sort of put that in context, the elementary would be bigger than the 2 largest elementary schools put together. Our largest middle school actually is the virtual middle school, which again, when this was made was 729, it's now 752. And our high school, our largest high school will be the virtual, which actually since that number, I think we're like 1,016, just a little over 1,000 since then. So some of what we've been working on these last couple of weeks, one was specifically for middle school. We really wanted to address the parents' concerns about, yes, sir.
Yeah, this has been revised.
Okay.
Yeah, let me pull up what's in the packet.
Okay. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, the question of being asked to do both Plan B and Plan C, which was not discussed and shared with the state until July 14th. We looked at a couple of ways to try to address that, especially in middle and high school. And we had done some work with Edmentum up to this point. We'd actually had a very successful pilot year at the high school level and with very select middle school situations. In order to hire their teachers for the number of students, we would have been looking at just under a full $1 million. With the route we took, it was $56,000, which then did create some challenges, and we'll address those, I think, shortly. The other reality was that in the hiring process, and we encountered this a little bit with our high school program, the reality was they couldn't hire teachers either. Everyone is suffering from the same problem. So whether you're a school system or an online product, you still have to hire somebody. And they were running into the same issues and have run into the same issues, as has NCVPS, just like Pender County, Onslow County, and every other county. And then with Edmentum, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, we ran into a lot of issues. The first week was actually okay. And then after the first weekend, they had to upload somewhere between 50 and 100,000 students. And at that point, the system crashed. And we spent 2 weeks trying to recover from that. And I think we're in a much better place than we were even just a week ago. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things we've been doing to try to address the concerns. For middle school, the biggest question was how to provide daytime support. That is still somewhat of a work in progress, but we've made a lot of steps. The first thing I want to say is that we did institute a Monday through Thursday tutoring program in the evenings. It is 2 sessions for each grade level of math, so there's 2 evenings for 6th grade math, 2 for 7th grade math, 2 for 8th grade math. Our ELA is a little bit more circular and common from one grade level to the other. So for that one, we have 2 ELA sessions on one night and then another 2 for the other night, so a total of 4. And then we have 2 sessions for 8th grade science. And then in addition for math, we have an on-call appointment for math. So math actually has a total of 7 different possible sessions. And each session is 2 parts. So one part is the teachers look at the pacing, and they have a kind of a general mini lesson. And then after that, it's a question and answer for the students. The other thing that we've done is worked with all of our middle schools to create opportunities during the day. That's been handled a little bit differently at each middle school. Some middle schools have collapsed sections where they've been able to free up a period for a teacher. Some took advantage of some unique licensure situations where an elective teacher also happened to have core instruction licensure, and be able to find time for that. Some of our schools already had built-in intervention and enrichment time periods, so they've been able to work on teachers picking up those. Some have taken the approach as kind of like our elementary teachers, where the elementary teachers were already kind of embedding our online students. And thanks to the work of Mr. Allen and our technology team, we've been able to start very slowly expanding some of the bandwidth for middle school. So middle school teachers are beginning to try to take advantage of this and see if we have enough strength to continue what we were doing in elementary school. So between all of that, we have been able to increase the number of daytime opportunities for a middle school student to receive additional help from teachers at their particular school. That is something that's very important to us, is that regardless of whether the student's an in-person student or online student, our goal and our hope is they will all be in-person students again. And we want to try to make sure that our sites, maintain some connection to their students, so that whether it's middle of first semester or January or whenever, when the student returns, they're not returning as though they've not had a connection with their school in the last 6 months. The idea is that you still had some connection to that school when you walk in, because they will be your teachers when you return. For the high school, kind of want to give an update on that as well. I think the board we made you aware that a weekend before last, our company transitioned platforms, and I would say over the course of that week, we saw dramatic improvements. Every high school student is now enrolled in one of the available platforms. They all have classes now. We are still working on some individual student situations. We have a couple parents that their parent portal, for whatever reason, is still not working. We are working with our support system. We are very glad that the person that we were used to working with last year for these kind of things has returned to our case and is working with Winstead, and we've seen a very quick turnaround with that person being back, and I think it's been very helpful. So at this point, our students are either on Apex, they are on NCVPS, or they are with our Ed Options Academy online. All of which are working up until the semester, and then of course in January we hope to be ready to return. And then of course we're going to spend, now that we have this time, we'll spend from now until January looking at options. If we're not under Plan A, we will make sure we're looking at master schedules, scheduling of teachers, and those kind of things to try to make sure that that switch over after the winter break is far more planned out and successful. I'm not sure what's next. This is somebody else.
So basically, board, some of the challenges that we've run into, and these are just basically, I got it right, fancy, but these are basically just things that we're trying to continue on and add value to, which is obviously our biggest goal is not to be a contributor to the spread of the coronavirus itself. And we haven't had a cluster in our school system at this point. We are tracking it heavily. We've actually built a very detailed tracking process with the Pender County Health Department, as you see here. We've had multiple districts come over to look at this. We've had people who sent people over to visit our schools to learn from us. Not only that, but how we're scheduling, to learn from things we've had to fix and overcome. But at this point, Dr. B, you want to discuss this and how we meet every morning and just to give an overview?
So hopefully all of you have seen this. This top portion is what is current up here by school. And currently the drop-down menu is set on all. You can set it by staff or student. If you have somebody that is quarantined, they basically have been exposed but not necessarily diagnosed. If they've been isolated, they've been diagnosed. And the bottom portion is cumulative. And there's a portion of this that you cannot see. Give me 30 seconds or less. And we are also then tracking symptoms. So the good thing about this, well, not good, but the very obvious thing about this is you can see that fever, which is the blue line, is a symptom that is more prevalent than the others. So that's something to definitely be looking for, and we are absolutely doing the right thing, tracking that on a daily basis with the students. So,
So basically, the way this works is our principals or our nurses put in whatever comes in. Most of this we get reported to at the school system. Normally a daycare, travel ball situation, or anything like that outside the school system. It comes, then we get a report from the family to us. We make sure that it goes into whatever we find out at school. It goes into an immediate shared spreadsheet that goes directly to the Pender County Health Department. And they put into the spreadsheet, and we put into the spreadsheet. But they basically then do all the tracking, they do all the conversations with the potential exposures, and then they give us a quarantine date or either an isolation date. And so what we're looking for is a return date, because one of our concerns is staffing. Obviously, you can look at it easily. It's a great just visual to look up there. You see a building there, right? Looks like Topsail Elementary School. We know. I called her last night looking at that. Basically, you need help staffing. There seems to be something going on there, yes. So we've actually sent secretaries, our administrators. We're pulling people from everywhere across the county to try to keep our schools open when it turns into a staffing issue. So matter of fact, Dr. Aiken's administrative assistant was the front office person and probably still is at Topsail Elementary School right now. So we're doing what it takes, basically. We're doing everything and anything to keep the schools running and operating as efficient as possible. We know this isn't a perfect situation, but it's working the best it can. Which that's a great segue into the next one, which was staffing. I basically explained that, I guess, but we've been working on substitutes. I think that's acknowledged by the fact that we're actually changing policies to allow more people to come in. Dr. Moore is she's worked with Cape Fear Community College to establish more classes, and we're just trying to push as many people into subbing as we possibly can. Facilities, we're kind of holding the class spaces for students as we review the L or IEP situations with those students because of the 6-foot requirement. And again, to remind everybody and everybody listening, when they came out with the 50%, that would have been easier. It's the 6-foot rule that pushed more than 50% of our children outside of our buildings. So we're very restricted on what we can do as far as that goes. And we have to, by law, look at the IEPs and the L IEPs first. And then, of course, finances. This is a situation where you don't know what you don't know. What are we going to run into? We've been spending a lot of money, obviously, on hand sanitizer, preventive things, safety things. Our contractors come in and do a deep clean, and they come in and do a sanitation if warranted by the Department of Public Health, or Department of Health and Services in Pender. And the contractor cost there, and obviously the software cost as we're trying to run another platform to expand our online education. So those have been really our key expenditures. Right now we're under budget, but we don't know, well, we're meeting budget, but we don't know where it may go because honestly it's never been done before. And that's kind of where we're at right now. It seems to have leveled off. In the beginning it was extremely critical situations almost daily. And I think as we've started getting better and learning and working with our contractors and making sure they're providing the services that we needed, at this point we've been able to kind of have a week where we were able to keep everything running and see where we go. I mean, I don't want to make any promises, but it really is a day-to-day. That's a general overview, and we'll try to do that every time we have a meeting, just to let you know. I'm sure that everyone wants to know where we're at with COVID.
All right. Next item is district accreditation through Cognia. And this is Dr. B as well.
You want to hold it on? Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We were supposed to go through our district accreditation review in the 2019-2020 school year last year. And we had applied for and were awarded an extension to the 23-24 school year with new standards. So what you see is Mr. Alex Riley with our wonderful accreditation certificate. And coming up in a couple of more years, 3 more years, then we'll go through the new standards and protocols that they desire. Please be aware that Cognia is the new company which took over Advance Ed, which has taken over SACS. So there's been this progression of accreditation agencies that have set up different standards for doing things. And we don't know what they are yet because they haven't issued them, but we will, and we'll get through it.
All right, thank you.
So the good news, we're accredited until 2024, and we don't have to go through that process. Amen. So we are in good standing.
And next item, fuel and electric costs. Ms. Chestnut.
Good evening, board members. You have in your packets the fuel and electric, and as you know, July and August are just getting started again, so unless you have any questions, that's where we're at.
Questions, Ms. Chestnut? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of amendments to the board meeting minutes before you approve those.
All right.
The first amendment is on the second set of minutes. It is the March 10 Board of Education meeting. Page 4 of those minutes. It's the top paragraph, lawn maintenance contracts. The name of the contractor should be Garbos, G-R-A Bose, B-W-S. And it's 2 contracts, not 1 contract. So Darren LaFawn brought forth a request to approve the contracts for a total of $170,905. Flip over to page 5, a similar revision, noting that that's Garbos, and on the advice of Board Attorney Brandon McPherson, Mr. LaFawn made a request to approve the contracts for Garbos, and then the remainder of the sentence stays the same. And then the next sentence, the contracts, and then in the motion, Board Member Beth Burns made a motion to approve the contracts.
All right, any more?
I would ask to make a notation on the March 30 meeting minutes, the March 26th meeting minutes, and the March 16 meeting minutes, that all of those meetings were remote meetings as opposed to in-person meetings. I think that's an important notation to make.
Okay. Any more?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
And do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the amended board minutes?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, Mr. George has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burns has made a second. All in favor say aye.
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 All right, unanimous. Thank you. The action agenda, board policy 1726-4036/7237. This is Dr. Moore.
Good evening, board members. As the state has presented numerous new updates to our Title IX policies, I'm presenting this one tonight for action. If you will turn with me over to, beginning at page 2, the attorney has highlighted some sections where you will need to make some decisions with regards to the highlighted information. In section 2, time period for filing a formal complaint. There is no deadline for filing a complaint. A complaint should be filed as soon as possible after the conduct occurs, preferably within 30 days after the complainant becomes aware of the alleged sexual harassment, unless the conduct forming the basis for the complaint is ongoing. So you're making the decision as to whether or not 30 days is appropriate. And then over on page 4, under adequate training, the last sentence, decision makers will be trained on any technology to be used at a live hearing and on issues of relevance of questions and evidence. And again, that's highlighted so that you can determine if you'd want those hearings to be live.
And as a follow-up, board members, this is going back to your August 11, 2020 training on Title IX. This particular provision, if you do not require a live hearing, which is found in section E1 below, this language comes out. But if you do permit a live hearing, this language stays in. So we'll get to section E1. It's also highlighted. Sorry, Dr. Moore.
Thank you. And then number 8, page 5, timeliness of the process. It is expected that in most cases, the grievance process will be concluded through the adjudication phase within 90 days after filing the formal complaint. And again, this is something that you will make a decision on. And then we move on to page 9, under section 5, with step 5, the investigative report, an opportunity for review evidence. To review evidence, the party shall have 10 days to submit a written response for the investigator's consideration before the investigator finalizes the investigative report. So again, you'll determine if you want to keep that at 10 days. And then in letter D, still under section 5, the party shall have 10 days to provide a written response to the investigative report, along with the party's initial set of written questions.
Both of these periods, the minimum is set at least 10 days by the regulations. You can add additional days if you choose, but you must have at least 10.
And then we go over to page 10. Step 1, student's opportunity to request a hearing.
This relates to the piece I was mentioning earlier. If the board determines no hearing will be offered, this section would be deleted and the remaining provisions renumbered. But
And then we go over to page 11, section 3, decision on the question regarding responsibility. And we go down to the preponderance of the evidence or clear and convincing evidence.
so this is part of your training. As a refresher, the preponderance of the evidence is 50-50 plus the weight of a feather versus clear and convincing, which is just lower than what it takes to be convicted of a crime. So those are the two standards to be held to. So the determination whether or not sexual harassment has occurred is, you have to choose between those two standards.
You have to choose either one of those.
And then,
Go ahead.
I was just going on over. do you
Yep,
have
go over
something?
13.
Page 13, letter C, under the appeal procedures. Both parties will be given 10 days, so here we are again with the number of days. You can have more days, but 10 is the starting point. And then the informal resolution, would you like to add to that?
Yeah. The informal resolution process offers something less formal than going through a Title IX sexual harassment grievance process. So it's another option available to complainants to resolve complaints. I like to refer to it as another arrow in the quiver, but in some instances, boards prefer not to have that as an option and opt to make individuals who want to make a complaint go through a grievance procedure if they so choose. But if you're going to allow an informal process, which I think a lot of folks like to have, I would advise having it out in your policy. That way your administration knows how best to do it. That would be my thought on it.
Any questions for Dr. Moore? All right, do we have a
I guess
motion?
we need to discuss, which, where was it at? I lost it. I know the microphone. The evidence part, where was it at? We have to pick one of those two, right?
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. George.
Let's get back up to page 2.
Here it is, what page? Page 11. So, Mr. Chair, we need to have a discussion or
Yeah, and
a decision on one of those
do we
two
need to do them all
forms of-
separately? Is that'd probably be better, wouldn't it?
We can do it, this is my opinion, we can do the whole thing, we just need to make a motion that agrees with whichever form of evidence we decide on.
That's right, have that included in the motion.
Well, in a discussion about what the board chooses to do as far as whether they want to have clear and convincing or preponderance of the evidence. If you have
Do you have any recommendations, Mr. George?
I don't, it doesn't matter to me,
Does any
I
other
like the
board
clear
members?
and convincing.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, that's what I like.
So if there's no more discussion, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda, striking the preponderance of evidence and using the clear and convincing evidence and the remaining modifications to the agenda, to the policy.
Okay, Mr. George has made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Fontana's made a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, everybody, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Blumenreich, calendar revision for the cohort.
Hopefully this won't be too painful. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, what you have in front of you is a piece of work that Cheryl and I were working on to try to move two of the work days that are currently situated on Fridays to Wednesdays to the remote learning days, specifically for middle and elementary, but also will affect high school, so as to maximize the amount of learning days that we have. Now, we don't have so much time that we can really mess with, but this will add a little bit more time onto the in-person learning days for the elementary, middle, and high.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Dr. Blumenreich?
Do you have any concerns with the changes, Dr. B?
None whatsoever.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the changes?
Make a motion to approve the changes to the cohort calendar revision.
All right, Mr. Smith has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burns has made a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. First part of item 13, interlocal agreement between the Town of Surf City and Pender County Board of Education. Dr. Hill.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Mr. Brewer, the new manager over at Surf City, contacted me, and they were wanting to set up an education facility that they needed an agreement with an MOU with the school system to do. I've worked with Ms. Bernard out of Schwartz and Saul's office to ensure that the MOU covers as much of liability as possible. We will have to take on some liability, and basically I've got this one sentence out of our email which says this MOU provides as much protection as possible against the risk of liability, including the identification clause and the insurance clause, but cannot eliminate the risk completely. Meaning situations where if there's a situation where a medical, a nursing program needed to be set up, if somebody enrolled that needed consistent nursing care as we provide in our school system, we've discussed how to overcome that. And obviously if there's some EC situations where some additional services would need to be supplied, our EC department will have to consult and work with them. Now that in itself, on the back end of this grant, we would be able to charge them for those services. So, but there are some liabilities, and I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of that. Onslow County has approved theirs with them, and we're trying to work with them. I think they're basically about half full at this point. I think they're going to take about 90 kids. So.
Okay.
Mr. Attorney, I have a question before I vote on this motion.
Yes, sir.
My daughter will be working. My daughter will be working in this program. Do I need to abstain from?
That is a personal decision. I would recommend it if I were you, Mr. George.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I request permission to abstain from this discussion and vote.
All right. Any more questions?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that we approve the interlocal agreement between the Town of Surf City, Pender County Board of Education that was presented by our superintendent.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Unanimous. Thank you. 13B, the name change proposal for Burgall Elementary.
13A.
13A. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we suspend policy number 9300, naming facilities, for this meeting.
All right, and that policy deals with the name of school buildings and so on and so forth. So do we have a motion to suspend the policy? Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Fontana seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Now 13B, the name change.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that Pender County Schools changes the name of Burgall Elementary School, and actually would go back to what the school was originally, C.F. Pope School, and change it to C.F. Pope Elementary. As many in the community know, C.F. Pope was a distinguished professor, graduate of Shaw University, became principal after the death of the former principal, Professor J.A. Fennell. Professor Pope served as principal for 38 years, and in that time in 1924, the school was accredited to become part of the Pender County school system. One of the amazing things is that with the creation of C.F. Pope High School at that time, and as he was working towards the what he had did for the county commissioners purchased that school for $75, and that was on November 17th, 1896. The building site is still there. Ms. Fontana, as a former principal, she spearheaded doing an area there to honor the memory of C.F. Pope, and she was instrumental in that, and I thank Ms. Fontana for it. And name changing the C.F. Pope Elementary School, I feel like that what it would do is it would bring back pride to those who are alumni of the school, and also it's a way that we keep our history alive and active. As anyone that has memory of this school, they have much pride of that name, and so there is a lot in a name. And so I do ask that the board, I put this in the form of a motion. We had tonight representatives from the community, concerned citizens, and also the president of the CF Pope Alumni Association came and spoke, and others with a petition, and asked us to do this. And I feel like that this would be appropriate time in our county schools history to do it. So I make that motion to change the name Burgaw Elementary to CF Pope Elementary.
All right, Mr. Smith has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. George is second. All in favor say aye.
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 And unanimous. Thank you. 13C is Board Policy 7430.
Hold on one second. Here it is.
Okay, good evening again, board members. Board Policy 7430, substitute teachers. Sometime back, I think it may have been in 2014 possibly, when we had originally changed the policy to limit the substitutes to having an associate's or a bachelor's degree. And at this point, we would like to recommend that we pull out that information and just include that first priority would be given to those who have, to applicants that hold or have held any teaching license, and a second priority to those who have completed effective teacher training or comparable professional development courses. And then all substitute teachers must attend orientation. Would further like to state that under the parental notification section, the first listing of the policy, that policy needs to change to policy 1320/3560, Title I, Parent and Family Engagement.
1320.
Yes, 1320/3560, parental engagement. I'm sorry, Title I and Parent and Family Engagement.
3160.
3560. So 1320/3560.
Instead of 1310 and 40.
Yes.
4002.
And then there are just other minor cleanups there. I would definitely note that since No Child Left Behind Act is no longer in, that this was a policy needing revisiting anyways. And so now you also note that rather than No Child Left Behind, that we're also including reference to Elementary and Secondary Education Act. And there are other just minor cleanup, and we will get that done with your approval.
So, Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve this policy revision, revising it further with changing 1310/4002, replacing that with 1320/3560.
Okay, Mr.
Mr.
George.
Chair,
Go ahead.
I'd offer a friendly amendment to Mr. George's motion to suspend the board policy requiring 2 readings.
All right.
Add that, just adding it to the motion will be sufficient, if Mr. George is so.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We moved it.
Mr. George has made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Mr. Smith has made a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore, for your hard work on this.
Yep.
And everyone who's listening, please get the word out.
So, Dr. Moore, I know Couple people I just said I forgot to run. I know a couple people that said they've applied to both our online and through the Cape Fear and have yet to hear anything. Or do we have a backlog of?
So what I would ask, as they reach out to you, please ask them to contact me via email, because what we are doing, even with the posting being on the Facebook page, what Alex is doing is forwarding names and phone numbers to us. Regina is in turn making direct contact with these folks based on their phone number, telling them the necessary steps, and also giving them the information to Cape Fear Community College. Cape Fear Community College has some more classes scheduled. They have a late September into early October class scheduled again here in Burgaw. There is a mid-September class that should be taking place at the Surf City site, and then another one back here in Burgaw in late October, early November. So we're trying to get them through. Some of the ones who have been contacting us who have not got interviews at the school, Mr. Chestnut has taken it upon himself to conduct virtual interviews so that we can still get them processed as quickly as possible. So we're doing as much as we can to still expedite the process.
Okay,
So please just tell them to contact us.
I will.
All right, thank you.
All right, 13D, the Blue Law Firm report. Is that, Brandon, are you want to talk about that?
Yeah, yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Board. The final redactions on the Blue Firm Law Report will be completed by close of business tomorrow and be ready for release and distribution as the Board sees fit.
All right, so do we need to do another vote about releasing it, or
I would,
will that need to be a separate meeting or a special anything?
that is at the pleasure of the Board. You certainly could do a separate motion this evening, but you could also let your prior decision stand and the direction you gave to
Earlier.
to
Well, then
our firm and to
just let
the
it stand.
administration.
Is that,
And I understand that, the reason why that the report was done, Mr. Chairman, the reason why it wasn't released immediately is because of, had to have redactions, and
Right.
redactions are just having students' names and personal information in there could not, go out. And so that was one reason why it was not released in a day or two, like some might have thought we should have had released, but
okay.
so we do not, since we've already agreed to release it
We
in
don't
the
need to change
redactions, it'll
anything.
be
Right.
released by tomorrow at the end of business day.
And everyone is fine with that, I'm assuming.
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right, so we
Thank you,
need
Board.
the vote on this is under action, so the vote, even though we've already,
Mr. Chairman,
no
I make
vote
a-
for this.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we, release the Blue Law Firm report with the redactions by the
Okay,
end of
okay.
business day on September 9th.
all right, Mr. Smith has made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. George has made a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, unanimous. 13E, surplus school property.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the surplus property that was discussed, that's currently at
Mr. Robbins.
Pender Elementary that was used there, to be donated to, what facility was it?
Maple Hill Community Center.
Maple Hill Community Center.
Okay. Mr. Smith has made a motion.
Just for clarification, that's the bleachers and
Yes.
only because there's some other items that were there also that we're keeping, correct?
Yeah,
The
it
only
was-
thing we're giving away are the bleachers. Yes.
Goalpost and bleachers.
So items that are not being kept by Pender School or Pender County
County
Schools
Schools.
to be
Right.
donated.
Is that,
Would that be,
I think that's,
We know the bleachers and the field goal post is what we're discussing.
Okay, I just wanna make clear we don't give away something we're planning on using.
Yeah.
The bleachers and the field goal, I'd like to amend my motion then for it to say those two items.
Okay. All right, Mr. Smith's made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Fontana's made a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. All right, comments from board members. Mr. Smith, start your end.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask Dr. B if he'll come up and if you'll pull up one of the elementary schools' websites, if you don't mind. The reason I'm asking him to do this is because many of you know that one of the things that is with so many children that are at home right now and not able to have constant Monday through Friday access to someone in person, possibly a teacher, guidance counselor, a librarian. There was brought to my attention by a few parents that the reporting system that we have on Pender County schools and some of the websites was not the most friendliest for smaller children, especially K through 5. And so the IT department has been working on recently in the past week to make a friendly version of report Say Something, which is an anonymous tip for K through 5, for Say Something Junior. And so if you'll notice on the Burgaw Elementary School, what they have done is that you can go now, instead of having to look at a pull-down screen and search for this, as in the past, now teachers and principals are being shown how to use this with the students, that they can click directly on the main website or on Pender County Schools' website, click the Say Something Junior, so we'll click that, and you'll notice that now what happens is that they can report their school that they're attending, and most of these children will know which one that is. And then we have the topics. Instead of having everything just written out or in paragraph form, they can actually click a box or the button underneath it, and it's from violence to weapons, vandalism, or anything such as that. And then you'll notice that if they can put a message, and they would submit that. Since in the last week that this has been implemented, I do know that there have been a few cases that children who have actually used this site, and I think it's because it's become an easier format. And so I just want to say bravo to the IT department and everyone else that's involved in this. This was a problem, and they looked at it. I had looked at numerous school board districts, Mr. Chairman, and I will say this, that we are probably the only one in the country with one this simple, that they can just click on the picture and do it that way. And we do have other links to the Sheriff's Department, and I think there are somewhere, we do have other links such as you'll sit there, Rachel's Challenge and Ready, and we have no control over how they do it, but we do have those available to them. I have been in talk for the last 2 weeks with Mr. Chairman with the Sheriff's Department, and they are also, with their IT people, going to develop a user-friendly program for children like what we have. And so if a child were to go to the Sheriff's Department, that they could report something there possibly similar to what we have. And so I just wanted to take the time and pause and thank Dr. B and everyone else. I'd hate to say any names, too many names, because I don't know who all behind the scenes has been doing it. Do you want to?
Just say student services.
Okay, I'm sorry. Student Services. Student Services and IT did this, and so I want to thank the parents who brought it to our attention, and then the quick turnaround of how I think it's excellent, and I hope all the other board members also feel the same. I want to also say, Mr. Chairman, that I'm excited to announce that after our board has had discussion unofficially that we are going to be rolling out a water bottle drive. As you know, COVID-19, that we cannot use the water fountains have been shut off because of regulation. And so the week of September the 14th through the 18th, we're going to be rolling out a announcement. It's been rolled out unofficially through some of our members' Facebook pages and other social media. But we're going to ask the public if anyone would like to donate a case of bottled water. They can do so at their local school between the hours of 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. And they can just drop it off right there on the sidewalk at the office. That water then will be placed in a room. It'll be made sure that there's no contamination and then distributed. And so that way the students will definitely have ample supply of bottled water. And I know we're already providing it, but this will just help also with the cost. And so that's the 14th through the 18th, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at all our schools. I just encourage the community to please to donate a case of bottled water, and I know that it'll go a long way. The last thing, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say is that West Pender Middle School now has a Wi-Fi access and is being used between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. The western part of the county is, like a lot of counties, is struggling with internet. And so before it was Topsail, Pender High, and Heidi Trask, but now West Pender has been added to that. And so I want to thank the student services. Is that who's responsible?
That would be nice.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank everyone then that to make sure, because that's
Definitely a family effort.
it is, and we.
But yeah, you can name about 5 people. You'll name everybody. I mean,
Okay.
everybody's got to work together to make this happen.
But it's a pretty big deal. I mean, to have a hotspot internet there for at West Pender, and I've heard nothing, and I know Miss Fontana will say this since she represents also the Burgall area. I've heard nothing but positive statements about the Pender High School walkway from the gym to the school, and it's just amazing just to see how it's brought up a lot of good feelings in the community, and just everyone is so pleased, and it looks like it's been there forever because it blends right in. And so I know everyone's been excited about that. So it's a pleasure to serve on this board with people that, all of you that are working so hard, Ms. Burns, Mr. George, you, Chairman Hall, and Ms. Fontana behind the scenes to make these things happen. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Ms. Fontana.
I would just like to thank the other board members for helping us push through the vote tonight for our substitute teacher policy. It says a lot. I've been saying for quite a few years that when I was in another county as a teacher, our IAs or TAs would also be substitutes. So they would get that little extra to make that happen. And that says a lot for the morale of our TAs and just makes them feel like they're even more part of the family when we recognize the fact that they can contribute and can also be substitute teachers. I mean, who better to have as one of your substitutes than someone who knows the school and knows how it works, the ins and outs. Secondly, I would also like to say that I'm sure the news tonight that we are now changing the name of a school has sent lots of reactions through to people. And when I came in here today for the 4:30 meeting for our committee of the whole, I was thinking, I understand there's a group that wants to change and the alumni wants to change the name, but I thought I was doing pretty good when I was principal and we'd made the annex, the CF Pope annex, and I'd felt so good about that, and we had lots of memorabilia with CF Pope. But Judge Trawick was here tonight, and I just want to let everybody know that he said something that has resounded with me. This isn't a name change. This is restoring the name CF Pope. I want everybody to think about that for a second. It's not just a name change. This was CF Pope High School. Part of the building that exists now was part of CF Pope. And Judge Trawick, if you ever get a chance to talk to him, boy, he really knows the history. I knew about bringing bits and pieces down the road and some of the things with the logs and the trucks or the vehicles and the horses and the mules, and I'd heard about that, but to hear him go over that again today was pretty amazing. So I understand there's logistics involved. I understand that there might be people say, well, oh gosh, we didn't know this was coming at all. But you know what? Sometimes it's not a matter of if we're going to do it, it's when. When is the best time to do it? Is this a good time? Is this not a good time? Sometimes you just have to go with your gut and say you're doing what's best for the community as a whole. So I would just like to say kudos to the ones who were here tonight and who presented, and thank you for that. And like I said, I know there's a lot of logistics involved. You just can't change the name of a school overnight, people, or restore the name overnight. So just bear with everybody to get that done. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, Mr. George.
I agree with Ms. Fontana. As a matter of fact, I talked with Ms. Burns earlier today, and that was one of the things I talked about. I was unsure about the Burgall CF Pope thing. And then I did some research and then listening to the speakers tonight. There's a lot of history there that's going to get lost if it doesn't get brought back. And that's sadly, that's happening all across America right now. We're losing history as we speak, and we need to try to bring some of that back. So I think it was a good decision by the board to restore the name of that school. Mr. Smith, thank you for heading up the water drive. That's a remarkable thing. We hope that saves us a few $1,000s over the course of this pandemic that we're facing. And there's a lot of great things going on in Pender County schools. We're still in school, and there was a lot of people that didn't think we'd make it to Labor Day, and so we've made it to Labor Day, and let's just hope we can hold on. And thank for all the staff and parents and administrators that struggled through this whole learning curve. It's a big curve. And then I've got some negatives, and I hate to be the one to talk about negative, but I am disappointed with the untimely release of the Blue Law Firm report. Just for public knowledge, back on August 12th, we voted to release that redacted report, and here we are almost a month later, still waiting on it. I understand that things come up and people are busy, but maybe next time if we have to go through something like this, we can keep the redacted part in-house and then send it to legal for review. That not only save us maybe some money, but it'll definitely save us some time. So to the ones that's been expecting that report, I apologize that it hasn't been here yet. And other than that, Ms. Burns?
First of all, thank you, board. I know that we made some decisions here tonight that are going to be long-lasting, and I was proud to be part of that. The name change to CF Pope. I'm almost 55 years old. I was brought up in Burgall, and I went to Burgall Elementary. And I was there when there was no AC in the building. It was mighty hot. I think that something Ken Smith said earlier is that you have to remember your history, because it does not do anyone any good to forget it. I think this is a way of honoring some of that history. And again, like I said, I'm proud to be a part of that. And speaking of history, we're going through some very historic times right now in Pender County, through the nation actually. Our decision to have the B and C, the B and C plan, to allow kids to come back into school, it wasn't an easy decision. And I know that there are a lot of people out there working hard every single day to make sure that this continues. And to all of those people who are working so hard out there, I want to say thank you. And I know that the whole board appreciates everything that you're doing, and that we know that it's a day-by-day process, and because you never know what's going to happen. But the fact that we've made it up to right now, and we are still in school, whether you agree with it or not, I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of all the effort that it's taken. Dr. Hill, you've done a great job. And to all of your cabinet and all the school administrators, the teachers, everyone, it's been a group effort. And like I said, I just felt that I was remiss if I didn't say thank you for all that. So I will be quiet now. Mr. Hall.
All right. Dr. Hill, for your comments. You got anything else for us?
Yes, sir. I would like to thank the board for recognizing our team. I will say that without these people right here. I mean, these people are going out to the schools. You don't look much deeper than this because this is about your full staff, and we're making it happen. Again, we're providing service at the top of the echelon as far as school performance. I mean, North Carolina School Forum ranked the school system number 11 in the state, and we're funded very much after that, number 98 to be exact. So that's a tremendous turnaround for your dollar. So just to remind the public, I mean, everybody's working and we're doing it with a skeleton crew. And it's all hands on deck in this school system. And that's the only way we're making it, is everybody leaning in. So I can't applaud them enough. This crew's been there night and day, all weekend long. So I'm very proud of them. I will go back and talk about the walkway, because I'll be sending you guys some might be me, because I got to talk to you about some other stuff too, but need to get a ribbon cutting date. It's a pretty big deal to get that thing built. That's been a long time coming at Pender High School. So be looking for that email coming to you probably tomorrow. And just a quick reminder, just for some business, North Carolina School Board, your fall districts meeting, which is all the school boards get together, is on September 10th. Beth, I want to make sure I remind you of that. So at 3 p.m. So just FYI. Other than that, I appreciate you guys. Yes, that's all virtual. But just wanted to say thank you guys. It's been a lot, and we're not out of it, but at least it looks like we're kind of gliding a little bit instead of just trying to build this thing to get it off the ground. So thank you so much for the support.
All right, and I want to echo what Mr. George talked about with the Blue Law Firm report. I'm glad that we finally made the decision to release it, and it's time now to move past this. And but the report again will be released very, very soon. Tomorrow, I think, is what we just decided. But I just am sorry that it took so long. There have been things going on, and I just want the public to know it's not as simple as just handing the report done. It has to be checked. You can't leave students' names in it. So that when we refer to redacted, that's what we mean. And there's a lot of other factors that go into it as well. And so it may sound like a simple decision to either release it or not, but there's a whole lot of thought that has to go into it. Does anyone have anything else before we finish here? Okay. And we have already had closed session. Mr. McPherson, do you have anything else that we need to deal with closed session at all other than approving our HR report?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So for item 14, the HR report, do we have a motion for approval for it?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we approve the human resource report.
All right. Mr. Smith has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burns has made a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Mr. Smith has made a motion that we adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. George made a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, adjourned. Thank you.